Story 1. Second Sight, Monday, August 3rd, 2009. Times are hard, and I work in a business that is slowly becoming obsolete. People are steering away from glasses and contact lenses to LASIK surgery and more permanent, feasible choices in the field of eye care. I've never been the type to collect my thoughts and put them down, and yet these have been the toughest months to endure as of late. My wife left me, along with alimony and a good chunk of everything I've struggled to build since I was in my early 20s. I don't know if I'll make my mortgage payment on time for the third month in a row. This hole is going to be impossible to climb out of. Thursday, August 6, 2009. Got a phone call from corporate and had to terminate the positions of 2 employees. Stan has been here for 17 years. He was a good eye doctor. I have a strong suspicion that more permanent layoffs are on the way. I had to go to a dealership and downgrade my vehicle, but the sales tax almost cleaned out my bank account. Friday, August 7th, 2009. I was helping Stan take his things out of the office today, and a new vendor approached me. He works for some company called New Vision, and their prices are better than every other type of lenses we carry. They don't do glasses or frames, only contacts. He gave a pretty convincing argument, so I filled my own prescription with their lenses, and I'm going to put them in tomorrow morning and try them out. This may be the small boost we need to stay open. I hope so. Saturday, August 8th, 2009. I called New Vision and told them my office was on board. I should have talked to our regional division manager before cutting the deal, but he treats me like garbage en route. Inley tells me that my office is in last place in every category but customer service. He says customer service doesn't make money if you sacrifice profits. He's not a doctor. These lenses feel more natural, and it seems like the material adapts to light better than any other brand that I've seen in my 20-plus years as an optometrist. I'm going to keep using them myself. I mowed my lawn today, and I swear I could see every blade of grass. Maybe our patients will drop some greenbacks to try these out. Monday, August 10th, 2009. I prescribed my first pair of New Vision lenses to a patient today. He's a 6-year-old boy who was blind as that. Before we fitted his eyes, his mother was concerned that 6 is too young for contacts. But after she saw him looking around and nailing the entire test on the wall, letter for letter and number for number, I convinced her to try them out. If I can get a pair of these out every day, there may be some light at the end of the tunnel. I've stopped taking mine out at night because they don't bother me like normal lenses do in the morning. I feel like I could leave them in forever. Wednesday, August 12th, 2009. I've prescribed them to 38 patients, and it seems that word of mouth is sending more people my way. People are dropping Hydrosoft and Toric left and right. The vendor from the company came by today and put a greater D in my office window. See things in a new light. Fit some New Vision lenses today. They also guarantee that you'll read at least a line below where you normally would on the wall with any other vendor. They won't tell me what the lenses are made of, but as good as they feel, I'm not hesitating to give my patients the best choice. The regional manager called again and congratulated me on turning business around. He'll probably take for it at the board meeting. What an ass. Tuesday, August 18th, 2009. I traded in and got a Mercedes, and I offered Stan his job back. I told him he'd have to convince people to go with New Vision when ditching patients because, with the health care reform bill in the way, this product is our only trump card. Without it, people will go somewhere else. I'm going to install a plasma TV on the wall in the reception area so people can watch football while they wait on their appointment. People love football, whatever it takes to get people in the do. Friday, August 21st, 2009. Stan tried them out and he's 55. He's reading better than he was in his 30s, or so he says. We went to lunch today, and he drives fast than usual. Maybe it's because he can see the road better. Saturday, August 22nd, 2009. I'm a little rattled. I called New Vision today to order more product and to fill some prescriptions with some tending patients, but the line has been disconnected. I called the vendor's personal cell and heard some sort of odd sound. You know when you're sitting at a campfire and you can hear wood burning and popping in the flames? It sounded like that. Maybe their phones are down or there's a power outage. I'm not sure. I'll call them on a regular business day, Sunday, August 23rd, 2009. I feel strange. I tried to go to Mass with my mother today. I try to go to church with her at least once a month. I walked through the front doors of the chapel, and my vision started going blurry. The membranes around my eyes felt like they were going to burst open. I didn't bring my glasses, so I had to sit outside before we went to Sunday lunch. I think it was just a headache or a spasm or something. I'm not too worried about it. Tuesday, August 25th, 2009. I'm frightened. Something wrong happened today. I fitted a 13-year-old girl for contacts, and while I was looking into a dilated pupil, something appeared in the apparatus lens that hangs from the ceiling when I looked through it. It seemed like a bat, except its eyes were on fire, and it was getting closer and closer to me. The longer that I stared into the scope, I looked away before it got too big. I think I've been working too much, and I may take a personal day. Stan is going to backfill my potty and send to his scheduled Wednesday, August 26th, 2009. I almost died today. I wish I would have. I went to the old house in New Haven that now belongs to my wife. Thanks to the courts on the way, I stopped at a McDonald's, and the girl in the drive-through window looked like she was going to kill me. Her eyes caught on fire and her teeth elongated, and her voice sounded like one of those mechanical larynx boxes they give to people who smoke their throats into oblivion. My Big Mac was shaking in my hands, and I spilled that special sauce Thousand Island shit on my khakis. I looked down to wipe it away, and when I looked up at the road, the bat was on my windshield. It shattered and tried to claw my eyes out, and my eyebrows are gone. It singed them right off before I sped up and threw it out the window. My wife asked me if I was doing drugs when I showed up at the door with no eyebrows. All I wanted was my pair of shiny black shoes from the closet. I shouldn't ever have to go back again. I saw her eyeing my car and my smashed windshield. I don't really care anymore. Wednesday, August 26, 2009. It's almost midnight, and I tried to take my lenses out. They're not there anymore. I reached in to pull them off my cornea with my finger, and I poked myself straight in the eyeball. I've heard of lenses with high amounts of protein buildup dissolving into people's eyes, but I've worn these for less than a month. How can I still see if they're not in my eyes? For the first time in my life, I'm scared of something more than my ex-wife, T. Thursday, August 27th, 2009. I checked the ledger today, and business is out of the red and in the black. We're officially making a profit on every patient now, but I'm having trouble focusing. I can see but every now and then my vision goes blurry and I see the winged thing coming at me from off in the distance. I tried going into the broom closet and just keeping my eyes open in the dark. I still SAW the bat in the distance, flying at me head-on. It's trying to get my eyes. I'm an optometrist. I need my eyes. Friday, August 28th, 2009. Stan is dead, and so is the 6-year-old boy. No one else has made the connection that the only thing they have in common is my office and New Vision. They found Stan about a mile from work. His car catty-cornered with the shoulder of the road. His ear was burned off, and he didn't have any eyebrows either. His eyes weren't missing. They were burned and melted into his eye sockets. I never got to ask him if he'd tried to take the lenses out. I have to call everyone and tell them to return their prescriptions and stick to Hydrosolved. I tried to call the vendor guy from New Vision. The line was popping and snapping again. The bat started coming at me, so I hung up. Monday, August 29th, 2009. 14 more patients are dead. I'd say that I would be looking at a lawsuit for my prescription records, but they haven't found any traces of any company named New Vision or a brand of lenses by that name. The same thing happened to their eyes as mine. I've closed my office. Dr. Mendez and Associates will be closed until further notice due to illness until I can find out what's happening. We're about to be in the red again, but something tells me that I won't be around much longer to worrying about the fruition of my business and craft. I was going to retire in the next 5 years anyway. Tuesday, August 30th, 2009. My eyes are not red. My eyes are not bloodshot. There's this pink, fleshy, throbbing membrane of skin around my eyelids. It breathes, it copulates, and it pulses when I stare off in the distance for long periods of time. The thing becomes to come again. I finally let it get close enough that I saw what it really is. It's a hairless human head with talons growing from a rut in the chin. The wings have wrapped around the temples and extended from the ears. Although the eyes are on fire, I recognize that mole on the corner of its chin. It's not any human head. It's my head. Wednesday, August 31st, 2009. It came to me this morning and gave me a bottle of pills. Said I should go down to Dr. Margaret Lenore's pediatric office in New Haven and tell her about this new drug. Helps kids with ADD and ADHD focus and get good grades. Supposedly works for 100% better than Ritalin. She tried it on her hyperactive Pomeranian, and it works. Saw $signs in her eyes. I didn't tell her that the bottle smelled like burning fire to me. Friday, October 1st, 2009. I found T. He New Vision property. It's deserted. Everywhere I go, things are on fire. The gas station attendant's face melted and stretched out 30 feet to the floor when I gave her my card to pay for gas. The pink flesh is dark maroon now, and it's growing out from the sides of my head. When I was shaving this morning, I ran my razor down from my chin to the base of my Adam's apple. The skin broke open, and I saw a little white sharp claw poking out after. The blood stopped. I found something in the back room of this place. The vendor guy is missing his head, and this entire office smells of ashes. Story 2. The Art of Jacob Emery. Ghost stories? Nah, we don't have anything like that around here. We do have the story of Jacob, but that's about as close as you'll get. You really want to know? Well, I'm not supposed to tell you, but all right, just no interrupting. I don't have the patience for it. How to describe Jacob Emery? Well, I guess you could say he was the kind of guy you could never take notice of. This isn't to say he was a bad kid in any sense. Many people in this town thought he was the most reliable person for an odd job in the state, but he never really excelled in anything. He was the living proof behind the statement, jack of all trades, ace of none. Most of this was due to his own lack of will. He dabbled in damn near everything this town could offer him: automobiles, radio operation, store management, what have you, but he never stuck with anything. His friends and workers went after him about it a number of times, but Odie got the same unsatisfying response. It just wasn't enough. Needless to say, any friends he kept were either very patient or never spoke of the matter altogether. It was probably inevitable, then, that Jacob would leave to go abroad. I don't remember where he went, but I think Gertrude down the street knew before she passed on. You'll have to scout someone else if you ever get curious. In any case, no one even tried to stop him. Everybody thought that a little travel would stamp the ambition out of him, or else feed it until it was no longer an issue. Hell, we even gave him a sending-off party, which I thought was pretty nice of everybody. So anyway, he was gone for 6, 7 years. Can't remember. You'll have to check with someone else about that, too. Anyways, he came back eventually, and he had change. Obviously enough, he was amiable, energetic, all smiles all the time, and we all quickly learned why. He showed us a souvenir he'd brought back, a solid black stick, the length of a pencil but the texture of chalk. We all wondered why on earth such a simple thing would prompt such a spring in his step, until he gave his demonstration. He took a piece of paper, and with this stick, God, there's got to be a better word for it. With this stick he drew a crude circle. It dropped and rested on the border of the paper like a stone. It didn't leave the paper, but it acted out on it, sort of like an old movie projector on a screen. Son, I know how crazy that sounds, and if you feel like playing skeptic, then you can leave an old man to his craziness. But I know what I saw, even if everyone's been hushing it up. And that stone he drew dropped. Jake even passed around the paper, and as it was being passed, it rolled around as the paper got tilted. None of us had any words for it. Hell, what was there to say? But he continued drawing demonstration after demonstration for us. Stick figures in various pageants and plays, doing everything from fighting each other to making perfect human pyramids, and we all thought it was incredible. That was all the go-ahead he needed. He announced that he planned to put on shows to pay for rent and food, where he would draw anything the crowd members wanted, that we talked to some length about, and he eventually convinced us that it would be safe his drawings ethical, the practice lucrative and unique, and the attention would not go anywhere outside of the town's borders. Poor Jacob, if I'd not been so swept up in the moment I am, I'd have read the signs right then and there and saved the sorry son of a bitch by snapping the terrible thing in half. But I was younger, we all were, and we saw no problem with encouraging him with what we lines saw as an incredible experience to be shared with everyone else. Nah, he didn't have any big radio or television connections, mind you, and the internet wouldn't come around for another decade, so he did what all people on a shoestring budget do. He advertised his show with flyers. Flyers might not mean anything to you city folk, but in a small town, they gain a fair glance over from time to time, and what's more, Jacobs managed to stick out by having little figures jump up and down and what not to get people's attention. His first show must have gotten nearly 60 or so people, probably a lot more than that, and his shows were fantastic. Someone would shout out a scene from a play or a comedy sketch, and Jake's hand would fly over a white wall like a bird he'd been holding back when he made that stone. That's for damn sure. His illustrations were all spot on, and he could make an incredible human figure in minutes. Come to think of it, I don't remember any of his scenes lasting more than 10 minutes to make. They were all really well-done scenes, too. Not only could you see a knight charge a castle, Jake would draw the castle's interior as well, like a wedding cake split down the middle, so you could see the knight scale the walls, fight his way through levels to the dungeon, fight back out with the princess, and make a leaping jump off castle parapets onto his getaway horse, all in complete silence. Not realistic, no, but that was part of the appeal. None of us went in there expecting something real. When a scene or a sketch was finished, either the characters would leave off a wall or he'd cover the wall with white paint. This was good in a way. It gave these shows a time limit, so that when he'd finish, head with all of the 4 walls in the room, everyone knew the show was over until the paint dried. Jake, meanwhile, was changing in a bad way. I'd mentioned that upon his return, he'd been extremely energetic. Well, that energy, that vitality or fervor or whatever you want to call it, it never left him, not for an instant. Far from it, it seemed to grow in him, and he enjoyed it all too much. His eyes grew wider. He slept gradually less over time, his statements and opinions more radical and frenzied, and though he never was a pushover, he was starting to make people nervous in his company. A month or 2 passed, and Jake's audience grew like a wildfire. Nearly everyone in the town paid to see Jake's art in action, and he had to rent out larger and larger places for them to see. He now didn't stop after one scene was done. He moved directly on to the next, put on the next blank space on the wall, sometimes to the intriguing effect of causing scenes to mingle, which the CRO loved. The subject matter got more wild and immoral. The monsters got more bizarre and creative. The fighters using more impossible weaponry, all for the sake of the crowd's interests. Jake got us steadily more indulgent, which we figured was from the money, and he became a drinker and a womanizer, neither of which got rid of that vitality. By the way, some of those women claim that you'd woken up in the middle of the night to see him scribbling with that stick on a drawing pad a gigantic grin on his face, and while most of them said that they'd assume he was drawing them in the nude, there's rumors that one or two of them got glances at that notepad. Those anonymous few supposedly said that those drawings absolutely weren't nude pictures, but neither of them, whoever THAR, will say what he was drawing. Don't bother looking for the notepads or flyers, though they're all gone now. I'm getting off track. Point is, he was hitting the bottle, and that's important because it was that drinking that would eventually ruin everything. On the night of one of his performances, as he walked in front of his cheering crowd, it was immediately apparent to everybody that he was completely drunk. I was in the front row, and I could smell the bourbon on him from 10 feet away. The show started. He went through a bunch of sketches and scenarios the crowd recommended when, at the end, someone asked that he draw himself. Everyone cheered the idea. I guess they'd been wondering what his creations thought of him, and he eventually No sooner had Jake finished connecting the final 2 lines on his coat than every single character across the vast, expansive wall all stopped and looked directly at that illustration. Lovers stopped kissing, clowns stopped laughing, robots stopped fighting pirates. Everything stopped and looked at the Jacob illustration. The crowd died almost instantly. I remember Jake's face at that moment, pale white, full of terrible comprehension, his mistake, and looking desperately to the cans of white paint he'd forgotten to put out before the show. Everyone else, were looking at the fake Jacob. That Jacob reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a black stick of his own, and as we all watched, drew a door. He pushed on his side, and the door swung open, allowing him to walk through onto the floor of the auditorium. The rest was an absolute hellish pandemonium. People screamed and ran for the exits as Jacob's characters, both those currently on the wall and those which had previously left before being covered up, ran out of their own exit, throwing pies, shooting lasers, blowing fire and poison, and the impossible. I was near enough the exit to escape, and gave only one backward glance. The scene will haunt me forever. Jacob Emery was being dragged by his creations, kicking and screaming, through the door his copy had made. The auditorium burned down, obviously enough, but I have no idea how many characters escaped, what happened to the fake Emery, or how many people died. The fire brought the fire department from the nearest cities up to over 100 miles away. They in turn brought the police force, which brought the government, which hushed up everything. They took the flyers and any art Jake had made, and swore everyone to secrecy or else life detainment. The fire was blamed on a cigarette in the garbage during a basketball game, and we all eventually went on with our lives. Jacob was May to Neve, or have existed. In retrospect, I realize everything. Jacob hadn't been creating illustrations. Illustrations don't move, much less act or attack. They're just images people see, shadows made to look like real things. Jacob had been making life actual, thinking things in some alternate dimension, using a power that was never meant to fall to mortal hands. He got drunk on his power. His punishment was probably well-deserved. Incidentally, the government screwed up on 2 different accounts. They did a damn good job silencing everyone. But proof remains. The ruins are still there. You know the auditorium's ruins. I hear they're going to start reconstruction soon. which will wipe out any remaining evidence someone can definitely see. But I went back there once, several years after the fire. Just once, amidst the rubble, covered in ash, I saw something squirming. I looked closer. It was Jacob Emery's hand on the wall, exactly like it had been 3 years ago. Sweaty but calloused, I remember, but it was constantly flailing as if the body was supposed to be attached, was still writhing in flames. That was mistake number 1. Number 2 was those Cree Tyans. Like I said, I don't know how many escaped, nor how many the government agents found and caught. But I will say only this. Those tall grass meadows on the outskirts of town, don't go into them ever. You were asking about those white figures you've seen at night, right? This town doesn't have ghost stories. Story 3. Aurora. Don't look at the lights for too long. This was something I have heard my whole life regarding the northern lights or aurora borealis. The warnings always popped up when winter was approaching in northern Canada. Sometimes it was a joke. We have a cafe here that is called Lights, and when winter approaches there is a sign added that says, "Don't look at me." It's a fun joke for everyone who lives here, and even fun here to explain to outsiders. You see, there is a myth that goes with the lights here in northern Canada. It's not the myth that the lights come from a fox's tail or from a great warrior building fires. We have heard those, of course, but those aren't the myths we believe. And here the myth is a bit darker. It's said that the lights are reflections of spirits. The colors change because there are always new spirits being added, but it's all spirits in the lights, floating all over to find their way back home. Some spirits are old and evil. Some are fresh and new and confused, but they all carry a negative energy. No spirit in the lights wanted to be there ever. It is said that if you look at the lights for too long, the spirits will think you are envious of them. They will come down and take our life and bring your spirit up with them. They take your interest as jealousy, and it engages them that we waste so much time looking at them when they wish they could be where we were. They think we are taking our lives for granted. They think they have to teach us some kind of lesson to make us appreciate what we have. So that's the myth. Don't look at the lights for longer than 10 minutes consecutively, or the spirits will become angry and take you up there with them. Around 9 minutes you are supposed to start hearing crackles and whistles to signal the spirits destined to come and get you. However, you can look for as long as you want from indoors through a window. They say the spirits cannot see you if you are indoors, but if you are open and exposed in the forest, which is practically everywhere where we are, you cannot look for too long, and with any myth, there is alleged proof as well. This proof is Sarah Watkins. Allegedly, she was a 9-year-old girl who fell victim to the spirits many years ago. Her parents took her camping. They believed she was old enough and has heard the warning enough times to believe it. They enjoy a nice day of winter camping, and once it got late, they all nestled in together on a log to watch the beautiful lights. After watching for 7 or 8 minutes, her parents took her into the tent to go to sleep. It was late after all, but Sarah was much more curious than she let on. After her parents were long asleep, and after the embers of their fire died away into nothing more than lightning boogies, Sarah crept out. She was entranced by the lights and craved more time with them. Without her father's old watch to keep time, she had no clue when her time was up. She got carried away, and so Sarah Watkins was reported missing the next day. When her parents woke up and discovered her gone, they slept through the night, only waking up to an empty space between them, where Sarah had nestled in the night before the site was assessed. But because her parents made such a mess looking for her, the police couldn't get much out of the scene. After weeks of scouring the woods and nearby towns, everyone sort of gave up. Her parents moved away, and nothing ever came from the investigation. But to this day, everyone swears it was because of the lights, and to this day, everyone swears that the lights glowed blue like little Sarah's eyes the following night. All the people who were around for Sarah's vanishing act practically had an aneurysm. Few suggest had Sarah fell victim to anything but ancient spirits. So, to this day, even though I am 20 years old, my mom still tells me not to watch the lights for too long. But now that we were all old enough, me and my friends and boyfriend planned to camp in the woods to see the lights. Even after seeing them so many times, it's just not something you get sick of. Despite the myths, nobody can deny the light's surreal beauty. My parents were fine with it, believing their warnings had resonated with me, and I would not be that stupid. But I was that stupid. This isn't a story meant to scare why. Oh, I still don't understand it myself. It's scary to me and my friends, and it's sure as hell confusing. But this will not haunt you in the middle of the night. It haunts me, but that is for different reasons. It is not horror movie material. I am simply going to recount exactly what happened. I will not add anything for scare factor. So, in the middle of the week, me, Matt, Jasmine, and Craig loaded up Craig's Jeep. Sure, it was a sort of double date. Normal kids shared straws and a milkshake. We went myth-busting. We were going to watch the lights for 11 minutes. Jasmine and Craig were great, going on for years. They introduced Matt and I, and they were the only ones who were truly supportive of us. We all made a great group, and I couldn't think of anyone else I would want to go on this trip with. Craig parked his Jeep a bit away from where we planned to camp. It was a small walk, and me, Matt, and Craig mostly carried everything, although I was annoyed that our packs and equipment made it impossible for me to hold Matt's hand. I really didn't mind all that much. So with more than enough food, clothing, and equipment full, our less than 24 hours, we were all set. Anyway, we arrived at the clearing excited and nervous. We set up the 2 tents, one for me and Matt, and one for Jasmine and Craig. After everything was set up and the fire was roaring, it was well past dark. We indulged in some good old-fashioned gas station booze, and by the time the light showed up, we were freezing and tipsy. It was honestly a mess, and being there with Matt and my best friends made it all the more special. I snuggled closer to Matt, keeping an eye on the clock. After 7 minutes, Jasmine and Craig stood up. Jasmine claimed to SH. He couldn't feel her toes, and they were tired. I didn't believe them, and assumed they were scared. But I walked them back to their tent anyway because I had the flashlight. When I returned, it was close to 10 minutes. Matt asked me if I heard anything, but I honestly thought he was kidding. When I laughed and gave him a playful punch, he laughed too, but I saw he felt weird. We reached our 11-minute mark, and me and Matt cheered and kissed to celebrate. The weirdness was forgotten. What was there to be afraid of? Spirits can't even tell time anyway. A few minutes later, we did lose feeling in our toes, so we went to the warmth of our tent. We both fell asleep quickly. That was the last time I will ever watch those damn lights. Around 3 a.m. I woke up to an emptiness all around me. I looked over to see Matt had rolled to the far edge of the tent. I assumed he was asleep, but snuggled up next to him anyway to comfort myself. As I rested my cheek on his heavily clothed and blanketed chest, he murmured, "Don't hold on too tight." It was weird, but I was tired and brushed it off. I figured he was talking in his sleep. Hours later, I awoke to hear Jasmine yelling. I was in a daze at being woken up, leaves, and checked my phone. It was only 6 a.m., and we weren't set to leave until 1 p.m. I was frustrated and assumed Craig and Jasmine were fighting. They were great, but for years they were well past their honeymoon phase. They fought all the time. I was already awake though, so walked out to see what was up. What I saw is still blurry in my mind and still makes me feel really weird. There was Matt, fully naked. I hadn't even noticed that he left the tent. Now, let me be clear. While we were adults and we did do things, it was way too cold last night to do anything as appealing as I find Matt. Nothing could make either of us take our pants off. We were both fully clothed in layers all night. He didn't simply wander out forgetting he was naked. Jasmine was yelling at him, and so was Craig, all the while trying to avoid looking at him south of the belt. I didn't care, of course, so I faced Matt and looked him in the eye, asking him what was going on. What I saw made me stop in my tracks. Matt's normal, bright green eyes had gone so dull they almost looked gray. He did not acknowledge me or anyone. Eventually we resigned our yelling and just tried to get his clothes on. Everyone was shaken up, and we weren't waiting till 1. It was clear that Matt wasn't just joking around or being forgetful. We left and took Matt straight to the hospital. Everything happened so quickly. Within hours of being admitted, Matt slipped into a coma. The doctors had no explanation. There was nothing wrong with him that they could tell. This pissed everyone off even more. The waiting room was filled with me, Jasmine, and Craig and Matt's parents. While they were never fully accepting of Matt being gay and our relationship, they still embraced me warmly with tear-soaked faces. That's the last time I felt truly comfortable being with everyone. 2 days later, Hot died again. The doctors had no explanation. They claimed he just didn't have any fight left. I was so angry. Why didn't he have fight left? He never had to fight for anything. Why would a fit 22-year-old not have any fight left? He was surrounded by family, and he had to know it deep down. None of this made sense. Truth be told, the lights never even crossed our men. Matt didn't disappear. He died of a coma, a weird coma, but it's still a common scientific thing to die from. And after all, I watched for 11 minutes, and here I was, but that's when I realized I hadn't. I broke my gaze to walk Craig and Jasmine back. This fucked me up, and for days I was just so confused. I couldn't believe it, and I didn't even tell Craig or Jasmine. I didn't want to sound crazy, and I didn't want to believe it, so we all mourned Matt in our own way, and eventually we all sort of drifted. The people I once found all my comfort in were now the ones who put me most on edge. I reminded them of Matt. They reminded me of Matt. There was no winning. I struggled for a long time after that, and I still do. I still don't know what happened, but I have a theory that I still hate. Maybe the lights don't take you away physically. Maybe they only take your soul. Maybe that's why Matt's eyes looked so dead that day. Maybe that's why his last words to me were a cryptic warning. I mean, the night Matt died, the lights did seem to glow a bit more green than normal. Story 4, The Keepsake Box. The sound of the autumn leaves cruel and ching beneath my boots projected itself through the forest. Around me, finally, I could breathe in the fresh air of the mountainside and feel alive again. I love my place here in the mountains. There is just something special about the peace and quiet. Naturally, you can assume that when I finished my diploma in Iraq and was given block leave to go home for a short while, I quickly accepted the opportunity. Here I was just outside my cabin in a rural part of Tennessee, far from any bustling military outpost, indirect fire, or the boredom that is the desert, the flat, boring desert. More importantly, far from any people. I'm tired of all the people. Now, the only town was several miles away, peaceful. My land was several acres, passed down my family for a few generations. What doesn't belong to me is no man's land, or miles of undisturbed forests, rivers, and wildlife. I relish every bit of time spent I get to spend in the mountains, and now I'm just about to hike a familiar trail. It's a good route that isn't too tough but also not too easy, which my father cut through a small valley decades ago. I really love this hike because it leads to the peak of a small mountain nearby which gives a gorgeous view of the land. I packed a lunch, stuffed it in my backpack, along with a flashlight and some first aid just in case it got dark before I got back, and I headed off. The first hour of my hike was exactly how I remembered it from when my father took me the first few times we went to a familiar hunting spot together. Stay with me, buddy. I could hear him holler. I would easily get sidetracked, playing with the sticks and rocks, running along the fallen trees, and bounding through the woods. As I got older, friends and I would grow fond of the land and play army together. The way the sun cuts through the roof of the forest is very stunning. Rays of gold pushing their way through the bright green and shining onto the bed of the forest. Looking around now, though, I'm definitely not where I ought to be. I got turned around, or must have, because I never remember there being a creek on this side of our land before. It was a thick river of unknown depth, perhaps 25 yards across, and gushing. I was standing next to the bank, which was about a 4-foot drop to the rushing water below. Gorgeous. I'll have to try to make it back here. Maybe I can do a bit of kayaking, I thought to myself. Despite my better judgment of getting back on track, I decided that this could be fun to follow the creek and have an adventure off the beaten path. I began off following the creek for a mile or so, enjoying the company of the water and of the singing birds and of the beautiful sounds of nature entirely. Why peaceful until, that is, when I first saw it, a small stone building about 20 meters into the forest. It looked almost ancient. moss growing up on the side of an old, rotten tree which saint have fell on the building years ago, and covering the entire left side of the structure. The right side of the building was slightly caved in. There was no door in the center, but a hole acting as a doorway which was void. Black eyed it cautiously. Something felt very wrong about it. It didn't feel like it belonged there. The blackness in the doorway seemed to be staring out towards me, almost whispering to me to come and see. The wind blew on my back, almost as if to push me into it. Everything in my heart screamed for me to turn and run, to sprint, to do anything to get away from this place now, and be rid of it entirely. I closed my eyes and shook myself of this irrational feeling that seemed to want to control me. I spent a year in a war-torn country and never felt such horror as this, and I knew I was being silly. I know at my foolishness. I took a step toward the building, and all the bad feelings went away as fast as hay had come. The leaves crunched below my feet, and twigs snapped. With each step, a small echo of the crunching from my feet were sent out to bounce amongst the trees. I didn't realize it in the moment, but those were the only sounds in the forest. There were no birds or rustling of squirrels or any of the insects which love to buzz and click and burrow into the living jungle. There was nothing there. Even the river at my back was silent. I reached the doorway, and the small room inside was about the size of a walk-in closet. Very small and very dark. I turned on my flashlight and took a look around the tomb. Dust and dirt covered the stone floor, with old dried leaves in the corners and the edge of the room. All the room was plain aside from the debris, except a small stone pedestal in the center. On the pedestal was an old keepsake box. I chuckled a little, wondering if I had just stumbled upon a geocache for the adventurous hiker. I brushed a thick layer of dust off the old thing and pleasantly found that it was a beautiful piece of craftsmanship. Intricate designs of the forest were carved into all four sides of the box. The bottom had a smooth feel, and the top had a golden circle. In the center of the golden circle was a carving of a silhouette of a deer being chased by wolves. A small golden latch protected the contents, which I flipped up and then opened the box. Inside were about 12 things, tiny trinkets and toys and junk, all neatly placed inside the box. My eyes wandered over them, and one object really caught my eye. It was a bright red rose. At first, I thought it was a replica, but looking closer I could see it was alive. Small water droplets were even formed inside its petals. The stem was a healthy green, and the thorns were clipped, as if it were taken directly from a florist and placed in the box. Not a minute before I looked upon it. Impossible. I reached inside, and my fingers lightly touched it. Immediately the entire room and space around me melted away. It was as if I was falling very quickly, and then everything went black. I couldn't move. I could only Washington. What was happening? I could feel what I was watching. Every moment I could feel what was here. I was in a dream, but I was also in reality. I was a woman. I was beautiful. I had bright blue eyes with rose-red lips. I wasn't alone. I was inside a restaurant with a man. We were smiling and having drinks. We laughed and danced and lived and loved, and I was loved throughout the night. We were inside of a taxi. We were at the park, walking home. He stopped and bought me a rose. I kissed him deeply. I smiled and looked it over. I held it to my heart. He kissed me again. It began to rock, and we were running home. We crossed over a street, and immediately my body was broken as a car slammed into both of our bodies. He was torn nearly in half. The legs went under the car, the torso through the windshield. Drunk driver, maybe. The rose flew through the air and slowed. It fell, and it landed softly into a puddle on the asphalt below. Rain sprinkled down from the heaven, as above, a bright white flash, and it was dark again. I started coughing and realized my eyes were trying to focus. The room reappeared before me, and I threw the box away. What the hell just happened? I was shaking violently, appalled at the horror that just appeared before me. What happened seemed and felt so real that my head was spinning. I felt sickened for what I saw. I took a deep breath and composed myself. It must have been several minutes before I could move once more. I gathered strength and looked again into the box. I don't know why I did so. I should just tell Eve, but I had to know what it was once again. My eyes fell upon the trinkets. A small red marble caught my eye. My trembling fingers slid up and hesitated. Do I dare touch another thing? Was what I experienced real, or maybe I just imagined it? It had been moments before, but now was fading quickly, like when you wake from a dream and can't remember what the dream was or what happened. All you remember was if it was a good or a bad dream. What was in my heart now told me that I felt something awful, but I was too curious to let it go. I ceased to abstain from my curiosities, and I touched the marble. Like before, the room melted away, and I was once again in a trance state. I was a small boy chasing my sister. She laughed and teased me. Anger filled my heart. I grabbed a bag of marbles, and I threw them at her as she ran. The marble bag snapped open, the marbles free among the floor. Her ankle landed directly onto a bright red one. Her foot twisted and snapped, her body flailing through the air, her head slamming into a wooden post, her body limp, then twitching violently. Blood pooled around her skull. Screams from my mother. The marble rolling away. The scene faded away, and I was back in the room. I sat up. Sweat poured off my skin. I was trembling and cold. Still gasping, I tried to get control. I composed myself, and this time I didn't throw the box, but I looked once more at not only at the trinkets. A small latch on the underside of the lid, which I hadn't seen before, caught my attention. I pulled it open to find a small notebook. It was leather-bound and only the size of my palm. I cracked it open to find a list of dates and times, and the name of an object next to them. A logbook, perhaps. The earliest entry was for a doll dated January 12, 1912. I saw the one mentioned amongst the junk. It was a small porcelain doll with a white dress and pink trim. Looking back at the list, I found the rose, dated April 30th, 1965. Then I found the marble, dated March 3rd, 1982. That's when I realized that the outside was pitch black. My heart froze. I had been here for far too long. Hours must have poured by. I looked at the manifest once more. The final entry, compass, October 15th, 2017. Today's date. I felt my pocket for my compass and sighed with relief. When I found it, I looked it over. My dad's compass, actually. It still had his name carved in the lid. I looked into the keepsake box and Tucked away in a corner was the exact same compass. With the exact same carving, I dropped the box, the lid slammed shut, loudly echoing through the room and the forest outside. What could mean? Why was there a duplicate inside the box? Why did I not remember how it got so late? And what had I seen in this place for hours? What was this feeling of unbelievable terror, like something was here, just invisible? Why was my heart pounding so hard, as if to get out of my chest the sound of my heartbeat in my ears? That's all I could hear. And then, from outside, the distinct sound of approaching footsteps. Story 5. When the Halloween decorations start bleeding. Am I going to be charged, W? I'th murder, the detective sigh, and did not answer. His eyes were tired, haunted. Just help us get to the bottom of this, he said. Okay, I answered. Lines do my best. I could hear the tremor in my voice. I hadn't stopped shaking since it happened. I'd had a strong drink to settle my nerves. It hadn't worked. Let's start at the beginning, said the detective. You were having a Halloween party. Yeah, I said. We do it every year. We take turns hosting, and the whole block participates. This year it was our turn, so you're T. He one who set up the decorations. Yeah, I said. Oh God, that sounds bad. But it wasn't just me. It was lots of people. I was mostly just supervising. Can you give me a list of who was involved? Yeah. It was, I'm sorry. I'm all over the place. Just give me a moment to calm down. I can give you the list. That's okay. We can come back to that. Okay. Okay. So who was it that set up the scarecrow? It was me, I said, but I didn't I didn't do that. I set it up the night before. Someone must have come in during the NIKT, and, oh God, the room swayed, and my breath came sharp and fast. My heart ratcheted up its pace to breakneck speed, and darkness began to close in around my vision. The detective said, just calm down, you're hyperventilating. Take long, calm breaths. I did as he said. My heart slowed, but the panic remained. Thanks, I said. Do you think you can keep going? He asked. Yeah, I said. Just give me a moment. My body convulsed with tremors, but in a few minutes they had settled down to a mild shaking in my hands. I gulped down a hard knot in my throat. Okay, I said, I'm ready. So the scarecrow, the detective prompted. The word filled me with dread. The scarecrow, I repeated numbly. It's a Halloween tradition. The neighbors said as much. You destroy it every year? Yeah, I said. Usually it's filled with candy and straw. Like a pinata, the kids beat it with sticks, and everyone has a good time. I just don't understand God. Why would someone do that? It's too early to speculate, said the detective. Right now we are just gathering the facts. When did you notice that something was wrong? Well, right away I noticed that the scarecrow wasn't coming apart as easily as it should have been. But I just thought that I had put it together too well. So I grabbed a stick and, yes, I took a swing. The detective leaned forward. And then what happened? My shoulders slumped. My mouth was cottony and dry. And then I said the scarecrow began to bleed. And there was a pregnant pause. The detective's eyes bored into mine, willing me to continue. He said nothing, and I had to fill the silence. It fell over, I said. The hat came off, and we saw that it was a body. What happened then? The kids started screaming. One girl started it, the Oakley girl, I think, and then they all went off. We, the other parents and I, we pulled them all away. We called the police, and well, that's it, you know the rest. The detective scribbled his last note and closed the fold-top notebook he'd been writing in. His eyes were hard, dull gray stone, impossible to read. When he spoke again, his words were measured, careful. His voice was soft. "What interests me, Mr. Johnson," he said, "is that you haven't asked about your wife." The question caught me completely off guard. "My wife," I said, "she's out of town. Oh, God, she's going to freak when she finds out what happened. She hates the block Halloween party enough as is. Your wife is out of town," prodded the detective. The question poked a fresh wound. "Yes," I said, forgetting my fear in a moment of irritation. "She and my son are spending the holiday with her parents in Virginia." "That seems strange," the detective said, "a family spending a holiday apart." I got the feeling he knew something more than he was letting on. "Have you talked to her?" I said. "I'd like to hear your side." "My wife and I are going through a rough patch right now," I said. "But I don't see why this is relevant." "It's our job to gather all the information," he said. "Then we can decide what is and is not relevant. Why was your wife not spending the holiday with you?" I sighed. I wasn't proud of it, but I was getting flustered. I could feel hot blood rising to my face. "We're separated." I said. "Why is that?" "It's personal. Your wife said that it was related to infidelity." "So you have talked to her?" "Yes." "Fine," I said. "You know, I cheated on my wife. I destroyed our family. It's all my fault. Now I've had a hell of a day. So if you don't mind, can you please tell me what the fuck this has to do with anything?" The detective paused. He spoke softly. "Your wife is in police custody, Mr. Johnson." "What? I am sorry to have to tell you this," he said, "but she has rendered a full confession." "A full confession for what? What the hell are you talking about?" "It happens occasionally in cases of separation," he said. "One party feels the need to punish the other. Unfortunately, the children are sometimes used as a tool to that end." The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. The room swam. Bile rose in my throat. "Oh, God," I gasped. "Oh, God, no. I am afraid we have positively identified the remains as belonging to your son, Ben," he said. The scream died in my throat. I blacked out. Story 6. The blue-eyed painting. "So, what are we doing here?" "We're appreciating art." "How do you appreciate art?" "I think you just stand there and look at it." "That's it, yeah. Pretty much." Danny were staring at a 9-foot painting of a triangle. No offense, but even your hipster girlfriend knew this was bullshit, which is why she crapped out of going and you dragged me along. I blew air at my bangs from the bottom of my mouth. "All right," I said. "Fuck it. Let's go get drunk." Jason grinned, and we started walking towards the exit. "That's more like it. You know, that beard makes you look like a dasha bag." "I think it looks manly, and Corinne likes it manly." "Danny, you look like the kind of guy who owns a special little comb for picking semen out of his beard. How long did it take you to come up with that one?" "About as long as it took you two." "Whoa, hold on, look at this one." Jason had stopped in front of a small painting of a face. "Shit, yeah." The painting was of the bust of a woman and looked like something out of the Renaissance. It was strangely out of place in the modernist gallery around us. Look at her eyes, Danny. Holy shit, I'm doing it. I am appreciating art. The woman's eyes were sky blue, and they bore a sort of dreamy expression which only seemed to enhance the strangeness of her beauty. It gives me the creeps, I sigh. It looks like she's naked. Do you think they've got a painting of the rest of her? Seriously, it's creeping me out. Let's go. But as we turned around to go, we were approached by a woman with wire-rimmed glasses and hair pulled back so tight that her forehead was reflecting the gallery lights. Do you like this one? She asked. Yeah. My friend likes it. Jason was too busy ogling the painting to respond. Who painted it? I asked. An unknown Renaissance artist. It was donated to the gallery, and we display it here to demonstrate the contrast between modern and traditional faux. RMS of art, is it for sale? Jason asked. You seem really taken with it. The gallery owner smiled. Go on and take it. Maybe it can inspire a love of art in you. Wait, are you serious? I asked. Jason shrugged and lifted the painting off the wall. Come on, sexy, you're coming with me. I can't believe you brought a painting to a bar. It's called peacocking, Danny. Whatting? It's when you bring something flashy to a bar to attract the attention of women. Sounds like a good idea. You want the girls to think you're some kind of psycho rig. HT? Shit. That could work. Maybe I can hook up with one of those girls that writes letters to serial killers in prison. Besides, I wanted to look at it some more. I've always had a thing for green eyes. Are you drunk already? She's got blue eyes, dipshit. Dude, get your vision checked. This must be why you're such a shitty driver. You think all the traffic lights are blue. I was about to tell Jason what a dumbass he was when a girl walked up to us and interrupted. Cool painting, she said. It's mine. Jason puffed out his chest, perhaps taking the word teacocking a little to literally. I really like the expression in her eyes. The girl went on, so vulnerable. It's like she's really baring her soul. Yeah, Jason eagerly agreed. But there's something more, like a fierceness. It's beautiful. The girl looked at the painting quizzically. I don't see it, she said. Jason, and the girl went on talking, while I drained my whiskey and started texting Karen that Jason had met a girl and was ignoring me again. He was always like this around pretty girls. He said he fell in love at least twice a day. Eventually they went off to her apartment, and I went home to the dorm. I woke up on the couch the next morning with a splitting headache. Jason must have gotten home last night sometime after I passed out, because his coat was on the rack as I became more aware of my surroundings. I noticed a powerful burning smell. I jumped up and saw smoke billowing out from the oven. Jason, you fucking idiot, I grumbled. This wasn't the first time he'd stuck a pizza in the oven and then passed out. Before it was done, I switched off the oven and went to pound on Jason's door. Hey, wake up, numbnuts, you nearly burned us alive again last night. No answer. What a lazy fucker. I turned the knob and saw that he was still in bed, but obviously awake. Hey, idiot, I said. Get up and see. But the words died in my throat. As I got closer, I saw the black pool of blood that had spilled from his mouth. His eyes were wide open and still. Shit. I ran over and shook him, but he was already ice cold. When the ambulance got there, they took him away in a bag. They asked me if I knew what had happened, but I couldn't answer. I just kept going over the same thing in my mind. Jason had brown eyes. I was sure of it. But when I found him lying there in a pool of his own blood, his eyes had been green. The next week was a blur for me. I numbly floated through the days. People's consolations and pitying looks were just mundane platitudes that could not reach me. The university held a memorial service for Jason. They printed out a big version of the picture from his student ID and placed it next to the arts building so people could come and pay their respects. I went a long way around the building to avoid seeing it. I didn't want to be reminded of what had happened, but I couldn't hide from it forever. After class on Friday there was an urgent knock on my door, and when I opened it, Karen was standing there looking upset. "I tried calling you," she said. "Are you okay?" I shrugged. "I'm surviving, I guess. Have you?" Karen seemed nervous about something. "Been by the arts building?" "Not recently. Why, I don't want to upset you, but I figured it had best come from me." "What are you talking about?" Karen pulled up a picture on her phone and handed it to me. "What the fuck?" It was Jason's picture by the ART's building, but someone had gouged out the eyes and spray painted a big red X over his face. Who the fuck would do something like this? I asked. "I don't know. The university police are looking into it." I so read. A thought had been nagging at the back of my mind for days. Now I grabbed my keys off the hook and marched out to the parking lot. "Where are you going?" I heard Karen calling after me. "I'm going back to that fucking art gallery." I'm not sure what I expected to find. An answer, I guess. Some sort of closure. But I definitely didn't expect to find what I did. Hanging right there in the very same spot was the painting of the blue-eyed woman. I couldn't believe my eyes. I just stood there staring at it. "Do you like this one?" I heard a voice from behind me, and I turned to see the gallery owner. "Oh," she said, "you're back. Where did you get this?" I sputtered out. The gallery owner stroked the painting's cheek. "She always seems to find her way back. I think she misses her spot on the wall." I felt something in me break. My emotional numbness was replaced by a flood of anger. I grabbed the woman's collar and yanked her toward me. "I know it was you," I said, shaking her. "I know what you did." "Are you going to hurt me?" she asked. Her eyes moved over to the painting, and I followed them. The painting's eyes were a brilliant shade of green. I gasped and let go of her collar and watched as the eyes slowly changed back to blue. The gallery owner straightened her shirt. "I don't decide who she goes home with," she said softly. "She does." I started to back away slowly, and the gallery owner watched me. I could have sworn the painting was watching me too as I turned around and ran. When I got home, Karen was waiting for me, worrying written all over her face. "Danny, what's going on?" "I don't know," I said breathlessly. "But I know who killed Jason." "You do?" "It was the gallery owner," I said. "The place we went last week." "The gallery owner? Why would the gallery owner kill Jason?" "Because she's crazy. She's some kind of witch." Karen frowned. "Are you feeling okay?" she asked. "Jason died in bed." "Danny, why do you think he was murdered?" I was breathing heavily. "You didn't see it." "The painting," I trailed. Even I could hear how crazy the words sounded as they came out of my mouth. I knew what I'd saw, but I knew no one else would believe me. "Nothing," I said. "Sorry, I'm just a little upset." "Never mind. Let's just relax for a while. Do you want to watch a movie? I agreed more for Corinne's sake than my own. After all, I was sure I'd just frightened her. We set up the movie, and Corinne went off to the bathroom like she always did. At the start of movies, while she was inside, I saw a text message from her friend Brittany pop up on her phone. Corinne didn't mind when I read her messages, so grabbed the phone and swiped it open. All the message said was, "Have you told him about Jason yet?" I heard the toilet flush and the faucet go on, and then Corinne walked back and plopped down next to me. "What is this?" I held the phone up to her face. "It's nothing, Danny. Why don't we talk about it when you're feeling better?" "No, something is going on and I want to know what the fuck it is," Corinne sighed. "Ed, all right," she said after they put Jason's picture up. "There were some rumors that started going around." "Rumors? What rumors?" "Some girls said some things about Jason assaulting them, and more girls started to come forward. The police looked into it, Danny. They're saying what?" "They're saying his DNA ties back to open rape cases AC. Lupo years back." "What?" "I'm sorry, Danny. I know he was your friend." It felt like all the air had rushed out of the room. There was no way it could be true. Jason had always been a bit of a chauvinist, but he was no rapist, was he? A few weeks later the dust had settled and the truth had come out about Jason. It felt like he had died a second time. All of my good memories of him were now replaced by some sick feeling I couldn't to even begin to entangle. 17 women, and those were just the ones who'd come forward. The school took down the picture and got rid of the flowers people had left. Some people saying they were glad he was dead. Those were the same people that gave me dirty looks when I passed them in the hallways. Whatever. It didn't matter. I didn't know what had really happened. The painting, but I decided to just let sleeping dogs lie. Thinking about it hurt. Anyway, I eventually went back to the gallery owner, who apologized for my outburst. She smiled and told me I had a good heart. As I was leaving, I could hear the faint sounds of her talking with someone. "You seem to really like it," she said. "Why don't you take it home with you?" Story 7. One last drink. Joe slouched happily on his bar stool, riding the best buzz of his life. Frankie sat next to him, nervously scanning the room. Holy shit, Frankie, just holy shit. There was something in that last one. To know what it was, but woo mama, I gotta get me another one of those. It was Saturday night, and the bar was crowded with 20 and 30-somethings, a dull roar of conversation filling the air as the white joked and flirted. Despite this, Joe was being loud enough to draw some annoying glares from the patrons closest to where they were sitting. Frankie gave the cute blonde next to him an apologetic smile, and she rolled her eyes before turning back to the Clint Eastwood look-alike currently chatting her up. Frankie swallowed hard. "Would you shut the fuck up, Joe? First, you can't have other one of those because you got us kicked out of that bar. Honestly, man, I have no idea how you've survived this long the way you act. That chick's boyfriend is gonna be pissed after what you pulled, and I'm not totally sure they didn't follow us here." Joe's drunken ebullience turned sullen in an instant as he sulkily leaned across the bar, his skull fixed on the bowl of peanuts resting between them. "Whatever, Frankie, let him come. Flower power back there wants to make an issue of it. He's more'n welcome to try. I'll feed his head to his own asshole. prick has a problem with me. He should learn how to keep a tighter watch of his woman. Frankie sighed. He'd been out with Joe enough to know there was no reasoning with him when he got like this. Yeah, I'm sure you would, Joe. Anyway, we should think about getting back to the house. You know how pissed Boris gets when we miss curfew. It's getting late, and if we don't get back soon, we're gonna be toast. Oh, Frankie, you little bitch. Fuck Boris, you know that. Ashat just likes to think he's got control of us. What's he care if we come in at 2 or 3? No difference. I'm getting another drink before we go. Frankie reached over and pulled on Joe's shoulder. Damn it, Joe, you don't need another drink. You're drunk enough as is. Any more in you and you're likely to start something that'll have us against the whole damn bar, and I don't care how tough you think you are. If that happens, we are going to most likely get the shit kicked out of us. Then we'll be lucky if we can see our all back to Boris' place, and even luckier if he lets us inside. A cold metallic sheen slid over Joe's eyes, and his mouth drew into a hard line as he reached up and took hold of Frankie's wrist in a crushing grip. Get your fucking hands off me, Frankie. Frankie let go of Joe's coat and gulped. Yeah, sure, Joe, whatever you say, man. A single bead of sweat rolled down Frankie's forehead as Joe increased the pressure of his hold, tight enough to leave bruises. Abruptly, Joe smiled and released Frankie's wrist. See there, that wasn't so hard, was it? Now, don't get your panties all in a bunch. One more drink and we'll head back to the house so old Mother Boris won't be concerned, okay? Frankie slumped unhappily in his stool, rubbing his sore wrist. Okay, yeah, okay, one last drink. Just try to control yourself, would you? For me? Joe laughed. Only for you, Frankie. Now then, let's see. What do I want? Better make it something special, see. Hence you're rushing me over here, and what is that smell? Frankie noticed it, too. The scent of fresh bloom lilacs ever so subtly laced with something muskier. The two men turned to look at the same time and were simultaneously struck, dumbfounded. The woman that stood in the entryway of the bar was a vision. Large almond eyes the color of dark chocolate were set above lips as plump as ripened cherries. A careless tumble of jet-black curls framed the incredibly pale skin of her face, hair so thick it seemed to beg a man to run it through his fingers. She was dressed in a modest black dress that nevertheless served to accentuate her soft curves, the effect exponentially more arousing than any of the far more revealing outfits most of the other female patrons were decked out in. The roar of the room had descended to a quiet buzzing. Taking a moment to survey the crowd, the ghost of a smile reached to the corners of her mouth before she made her way to the bar. The gentle sway of her hips holding the profound attention of every man in the room as well as the unmasked disgust of many of the women. Sliding smoothly onto a stool 10 feet down the bar from Joe and Frankie, the spell was abruptly broken, and threads of conversation began to pick up again. Around them, Joe turned to Frankie excitedly. Frankie, I am gonna tap that shit. Frankie sighed. Joe, really, every other goo. Why in here just thought the same thing, man. I mean, look at her. No way is she dumb enough to go anywhere with you. Let's just get out of here. That chick is trouble. I can feel it. There's just something about her that isn't right. You know, something off. Joe grinned. Yeah. there's something off. See that pale-skinned, profound lack of vitamin D? Fortunately for her, I have the cure. Watch and learn, Joe. Look, if she shoots me down, we go home okay. I won't even try to get another drink. Fine, I'm holding you to that. I'll see you back here in 2 minutes. Then we're gone. Joe flashed a tooth-bearing grin and laughed before sauntering towards the woman, who already had 3 other men clustered around her. Frankie leaned back against the bar, ready to observe the comedy. The tea was surely about to unfold. He could see her watching Joe out of the corner of her eye as he approached, only turning to give him her full attention when he'd gotten close enough to throw her one of his patented pickup lines. Here it comes. Frankie thought the part where she throws her head back and laughs her ass off. Maybe if he uses one of his extra special lines, those other guys there will do me a favor and lay him out. Then I'll just have to get the bouncer to help me cart the shithead to a cab. He could see Joe say something then, to Frankie's amazement. The woman's mouth curled into a wicked grin, her eyes burning with lust-filled desire as she hungrily stared at Joe. She raised a single finger to the lips of the man standing next to her. Ho had been obliviously trying to carry on a conversation before grabbing Joe by the hand and pulling him behind her towards the restrooms at the back of the bar. Joe had time to flash Frankie an excited thumbs up across the room before the door slammed shut behind them. Frankie's mouth dropped open in shock. Holy shit, he muttered to himself. Maybe I should see about getting another drink after all. Instead, he simply sat at the bar, waiting for Joe to finish whatever the hell he was doing back there. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15. After 20 minutes, Frankie began to get worried. At 30, he got up and started to make his way back to the restroom. Joe would be pissed if Frankie was interrupting, but damn it, they'd already missed curfew. He shoved through the bathroom door and stopped, unable to believe what he saw. Joe stood slumped against the back wall of the restroom, his arms held on either side by men built like professional linebackers, and looking like he'd been beaten to hell. The sultry woman standing in front of him was wielding a pair of pliers. As Frankie watched, she reached into Joe's mouth with the tool and, accompanied by a sickening series of cracking pops, ripped one of his teeth out to join the small pile already on the tiled floor beside her. Joe moaned softly as bright red blood steadily pulsed out of his mouth and down his chin and chest. Frankie stepped farther into the room. Hey, what the fuck are you doing to him? If he could get one of those guys off Joe, they might just stand a chance of getting the hell out of there. He briefly registered movement to his rear and realized another assailant must have been hidden behind the door. Before he could turn, he felt the sharp stab of a needle, then something like liquid fire injected into his neck. Frankie fell to the floor screaming and writhing in pain as the poison did its work before finally passing into blessed unconsciousness. Ice-cold water poured over his head woke him up, sputtering. Frankie coughed and blinked his eyes, a dull burning still echoing from his neck where he'd been injected earlier. His mouth was so dry it felt like sandpaper. He looked around. He was sitting, tied to a chair in the middle of a nondescript warehouse, the pale light of dawn shining through the dirt-encrusted windows high above to his rig. He saw Joe was secured to another chair in a similar fashion, so battered and bruised that if Frankie didn't know better he would have thought the man was dead. The woman stood in front of him holding a bucket, flanked on either side by a pair of her black-clad goons. She'd changed out of her dress from the bar into the same military-style clothing the men wore. She smiled as Joe moaned through his mouth full of missing teeth, his head lolling in a circle. "So sorry to wake you boys," she purred, her voice velvet over steel. "But I wanted to make sure you were conscious for the big finish." "Fuck, lady, what the hell is happening?" Frankie croaked. "Who are you? What the fuck are you doing to us? Please, give me something to drink." She gestured to one of the men standing beside her. "Morris." The man stepped forward, and Frankie saw he held a pint-sized bag of blood in his enormous hands. Fingers moving deftly for a man of high size, he inserted one end of a small plastic tube into the bag and held the other end over Frankie's mouth. A few small drops bled from the tube onto Frankie's tongue, salty and so rich he almost gagged. Then the man called Morris was gone, administering the same to Joe before returning to the woman's side. There the woman smiled. "One last drink. In answer to your previous questions, my name is Morgana Fontaine. What is happening is I am avenging the death of my darling sister and countless other victims of your horrific appetites." She turned and walked to the sliding cargo door on the side of the warehouse. "And what I am doing," she said, heaving at the chain to raise the door, "is ridding the world of two more godforsaken parasites." Facing east, the light of the morning sun streamed through the doorway directly onto the two prisoners strapped in their chairs. As the first rays touched them, the men's skin began to blacken and steam before spontaneously bursting into flame. Now fully alight, Joe and Frankie's screams echoed throughout the empty warehouse, pockets of fat under their skin bubbling and bursting, their eyes melting in their sockets. Morgana and her companion stood watching the conflagration, unblinking, until all that was left of the vampires were two small piles of dust and a pair of greasy black stains. Approaching the remains, Morga non-nosily hawked and spat a healthy wad of phlegm into the ash. "For my sister, let's get this cleaned up and get some breakfast, boys. I'm hungry." With that, the hunter turned her back, heavy boot heels clicking as she walked through the warehouse door into the welcoming light of day.